Been working on combines over there for 19 years. So, seen a few things over the years. Greg Stufan, also out of the Tyler location. Been there about 9.5 years now, working next to Mark. So we try to help each other out and keep the problems to a minimum. So I guess we're going to start with this combine. We're going to talk about the reverser. Basically on these combines we want to change the lube on this reverser every year. What we're using is a pure synthetic John Deere lube. This was engineered by John Deere especially for these reverser gear cases. And with our big heads, our chopping heads, we want to change that lube in there every year. Basically we're running a 5-speed feeder house. You're going to have 11 pints. If you got a high torque, you're going to be 10.5 pints right in that area. Most of you are running 5 speeds or variables. We've got variable sheaves on our high torque. We've got some grease zerks on our sheaves. We want to make sure we grease them every day. Basically when we get our grease zerks at 10 and 2, we want to give the one at the 12 o'clock position more. We want to give that about 8 pumps. The one at 2 o'clock, we want to give 3 to 4 pumps. It's pretty important when we grease that we cycle them sheaves in and out, that back shaft speed, so we distribute that grease in the cams. And then if we got the variable speed, we got 2 grease zerks on the back up here. You got to reach down underneath here and grease them. You're not greasing bearings there, you're greasing a cam, a cavity. You won't probably over grease it. Don't be scared to put a lot of grease in there. We recommend using the TY6341 grease on the entire combine and definitely on the reverser sheaves. It's a high temperature, high pressure grease, and if you're not using that down there, that's where we're seeing the failures. When the grease breaks down, or it gets warm, it liquefies, and then when it cools again, it actually becomes grease. And then you take and use some old cheaper grease that you got, bought out of runnings. A lot of that stuff, when that gets warm, it just turns to ash and burns. It's nothing. It's not even doing its job anymore. So it's important to use a good quality grease in there, and that's why we recommend the John Deere quality urea grease. Ask the parts guys for John Deere grease. If they don't know what you're talking about, tell them to talk to the tech, because they should know anyways. Most of you are using it anyway, probably. It's the green grease. Any questions on any of that stuff? Basically what we got here on our rotor, we got our thrashing elements. Then at the shop when we're doing inspections, we got this little plastic gauge tool that we're using. What we're checking on your elements is we're using this tool to check this edge. Once this edge gets wore down, we're going to want to replace these elements. Behind the elements in our separating area, we got separator tines. We're also using this tool to check the wear length on these tines. I don't normally use this tool for that because normally by the time you wear that down to where that tool says it's bad, you're going to see separating problems way before that. Basically when they start getting rounded and you start losing length, I'd replace these. These and the thrashing elements need to be replaced in sets of 3. When you go in and buy these, you're going to get a box. There's going to be 3 of them in there with instructions on how to count, how to change your groups. There's 3 in a group, so you're going to want to change your groups. They were designed to break. They want them to break at this point, this break point, so it damages the rest, not less damage to the rest of the machine basically. They don't want them breaking a bigger chunk off. As far as this tool, it's also used for checking the wear on our concaves. We got this area here, we can use it to check our wire concaves, our large wire and small wires for wear. And this end we're also using it to check our round bar concaves.
if this can slide over the round bar, we should be thinking about replacing concaves. We got, in this machine here, we can see we got separator grate spacers, and they're in the up position. If you're getting a grain sample in your tank and it's got small pieces of cob in and you can't get it out with sieve adjustments, it's a good place to check is where your spacers are. If you look up here, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed this or did this, but this spacer will go down in between your frame and your grate. Basically what that does, not fall down, is, maybe you can see better from down here. But that separator grate is so far away from that tine, and it's just enough room where a cob will get in between there. It'll break a little chip off that cob. So by putting them grates in, we're going to drop that separator grate and move it out a little bit so we don't, these tines ain't hitting and breaking that cob. So if you got small pieces of cob, you don't know where it's coming from, that's where you check.
If you're not running any small grain, you can put them in and leave them in. And small grain, if you're running higher acres on the small grain, that's where you can take them spacers out just like they are now to get better separation. Get that grain to fall through that crop mat that's in there and actually get it in the tank instead of right out the back.
Got 3 different concaves we can put in. We got small wire, large wire, and round bar. Round bar is pretty good for corn and soybean, or it's the best for corn and soybeans. But there are a lot of options available. We put large wires in the front concave, and then the back ones we leave round bars. What that can do is help in your tough bean conditions. When you first start in the year, that you'll get them pods that are harder to get. That large wire will help get some of them extra beans in the tank. As far as crop setting, what I'd like to do is basically set your concave to your cob diameter. Grab a cob, take your wrench set, put your wrench over your cob, and if the 24 millimeter wrench is the size of your cob, set your concave at 24. It's a good place to start if you want to know where to kind of start setting your concave. But I like to run a pretty fast rotor speed. We see a lot less crop damage with a fast rotor speed, for the simple reason that with our heads, we got so much material coming into these combines that if we're running a low rotor speed, that material is just getting forced in there, and it's just sitting there, and you're grinding it, you're packing it in there, and you're getting damage. Now we speed that rotor up, it's in and it's out, and we got no damage. So a lot of guys tend to run too slow rotor speeds. Always increase rotor speed before your concave. Run your rotor speed up till your damage is acceptable, and then mess with your concave. Does that make sense? You guys do that? Some guys do, some guys don't. A lot of guys like to run too low rotor speeds.
What should it be?
It varies.
Conditions. Spongy cobs, dry cobs, hard threshing, easy threshing, it varies. It could vary even field to field. Amount of leaves and trash actually coming into the machine is going to vary that speed and the cleanliness of the crop and the damage of the crop. So it's not adjust it once in the beginning of the season and think you're good for the whole season for all varieties and types. It's a continuous check.
Where you want to start?
We got the slide charts. There should be one with your combine.
Normally on your touch set, them settings that are in there are a pretty good rule of thumb to start.
A good start.
There's guys that use the setting that's in the combine and they're good, and they're good. I mean, some guys tend to use too low rotor speeds. So don't be scared to increase rotor speed.
With our rotor speed, we've got our 2-speed gear case, our handles right here. Push it in for for low speed, pull it out for high speed. What we recommend in soybeans, start in low gear, that handle pushed in. We've got a range of 220 to 540 on the low side, and then 400 to 1,000 on our high side. So we've got 140 RPM overlap between them two gears. And if we can run, and say we're running 500 RPMs in low gear and we're getting acceptable threshing, that's where we want it then. But if you need to go higher than that, say up to 600, then we need to upshift that. And the reason we recommend that is that first gear is more of a direct drive, and also the way that belt is designed on the inside, it's spring loaded, and the way that belt sits in there at that higher speed like that, we're getting that full spring pressure on both sides of that belt, so we don't have the slippage and we don't have the heating and the vibration and stuff that's caused by the slipping and by that there. So if you can get by with running it in a low gear, or in low gear, and you're below that 540 RPM, that's where we want to be.
So you're better off running in low at high RPM.
Yep.
Now you're better off running on the high end of the low than the low end of the high.
At a lower speed too, but you're better off at the high end of first gear than the low end of second gear.
These combines are a little fussier that way just because of your set point. You're going to get codes, alarms that say set point can't be reached. So.
And that's when you're trying to use the automatic settings. So if you manually go in and change it and adjust it to where you want it, then you won't get the beepers. With that, I mean, we're at the back of the rotor here. We got this black sheave here. That's what drives our discharge beater. Inside there, we've got serrated wear strips in there. When they get when they start getting rounded off about halfway, we've got the option to take the bolts out and flip them serrations over so that we can still keep that crop moving over through there. The reason for it is, like Mark was saying, we're packing all that stuff, that material and stuff in the front of the machine, and we're trying to move it fast out of the machine. Now, if we don't have them nice and square to grab that crop and pull it out, we're going to slow it down again. So we want to make sure that we got a good square edge on them to pull that material back out of there and get it out of the machine. And you don't have to worry about the damage there because your threshing and your separation should already be done. That should be done up here. And if it isn't, then we need to make some adjustments up here, not back here. And keep going back. We got the 2-speed chopper. Nice thing on these machines, they made it where we can just push and pull this lever here out all the way for high speed for small grain, and also the beans, in for corn and slow speed. Making sure that the knives inside on the rotor are good and sharp edge on them. If you start getting dull ones, one, it'll cause some vibration. Two, it'll take horsepower, and horsepower burns fuel. So keeping them sharp and keeping that material, sling it out of there and size it and get your residue the way you need it out in the field. Same with your slide knives. Keep a good sharp edge on them. And then, at the beginning of the season, if you got them greener stem beans, you're probably going to find where you are running it in majority of the way. But later in the season, do some field checks. And yep, you walk behind the machine, you got acceptable, you like the way it's sizing your residue. Try to back it out a little bit and then recheck it. You might find where you don't hardly even have this in at all. And you're going to save that horsepower and then save that fuel.
We got the ability with our tail boards and the different options. We can spread that material so far that we don't need to be sizing it up so short anymore. We can get by with a longer stem laying out in the field, and it's still going to go through our tillage equipment. So we don't, you're wasting horsepower and fuel to size that smaller than you need it. If that makes sense, is kind of what we're trying to say.
Any questions over on this side of the machine? Continue to the other side.
Basically on the back here we got our crop diverter door. We want to make sure that that's in corn when we do our crop changeover. The purpose for that door is basically it won't let the cobs kick back, so it bends your chafer louvers and stuff. It keeps them cobs from flying back forward. Pretty important setting there on crop changeover. Back up in here we got sediment bowl for the fuel. You want to make sure that that's clean and drain the water out of it. It's got water in it. And do the daily maintenance on there.
Conveyor chains, tailings in the clean grain. If you don't have the refresher, I mean, you just got a little bit different looking system over here. Tension, it's the same. We want to be able to slide it back and forth on the sprocket, but not be able to pull it away from the sprocket more than a 1/4 inch. Very, very important adjustment on this clean grain. At the top of the clean grain, we've got our mass flow sensor, which reads our yield. And probably everyone that's running S-Series is mapping at the same time. So you're judging your maps and next year's crops off of that map. If you're not tensioning that properly, that paddle sits in there and it just natural weight is sagging a little bit. And then you get the crop on there and it pulls it down a little bit more. And it kind of lazily just throws it at that sensor. It's not slinging it at it like it should be to get an accurate reading. So you tension it properly, it's sitting there nice, and it's flinging that grain. Getting that more accurate reading.
Do you have to move the sensor too when you tighten the chain, or that's not going to be a problem?
Sensor's on the front side of the elevator,
You
so
don't have to adjust
it
that.
has no.
What normally what we find is when they come into the shop and we do an inspection, if we run a real loose, clean elevator chain, when we take the belt off and roll that chain around and inspect it, we're going to find broken paddle links because that paddle is constantly bending down, and instead of bringing your corn straight up, you know, it's lazy and you're not getting, they're just overworked, and just that paddle bending, you're going to break connect paddle links.
And
It's
also,
not uncommon to find broken paddle links on chains that don't get adjusted.
with a loose chain, that auger carrying that clean grain across from the entire combine, that sprocket and that bottom of that chain is sitting in that grain all the time. So if we get too much play in there, them kernels will actually get between the rollers and that sprocket and cause crop damage right at the last point of our transition.
How far down can you adjust that without the auger hitting the bottom of the auger on the bottom?
You can go all the way
There's
up
a
to the
slot
bottom
on
of
the
slots.
inside,
Yeah.
so you
all the way.
can't go too far. It'll go to the bottom of the slot. If you look in here, or feel in here, there's a slot in there, and once it hits
Okay.
that, it can't go no
Okay.
lower. And then once we get down to there, that's when, you know, go a little bit looser on the chain again, but then we can, there's half links in there. We do got the option to crank that auger back up, sprocket, take a half link out, reconnect it again. Got variable sheaves here for the cleaning fan, making sure that we're greasing them according to our intervals, and then once we're doing that, to actually cycle them, distribute that grease, keep them bushings and that machine shaft in there good and lubed so we don't have premature wear. Following these grease charts religiously is a good idea. It's like a Bible to a combine. You don't want to be over greasing. A lot of the bearings that we replace are greasable bearings, and that's for the simple fact that a lot of you probably got power lubers and they're getting over greased.
I bet you'd
Popping
never
the seals up.
thought you'd come to a combine clinic and the guys would tell you, don't grease your combines. That day is here, guys. You're doing damage by over greasing these things. If you're one of these guys that think you gotta grease your combine every morning, I want you greasing bushings, not bearings. Grease the axle, grease the fan sheaves, grease the reverser. Let's
Rotor
grease
sheaves.
bushings, things that are moving, not bearings. Because bearings, very high failure rate if they're over greased.
Questions?
How do you count the strokes of a John Deere grease gun? They go so fast that you can't count that fast. Yeah, they put the same amount as a...
We got that same question this morning, and I says, you know, it's weird because you take one of these old hand pump grease guns and take 2 or 3 pumps and put a pile on your bench, and then take your auto luber and measure it. Every grease gun is different on the amount of grease it puts out in one stroke.
Because they go so fast, you can't count them. So 3 pumps. And
You can. Does it have a low speed?
No.
Right. The ones we use at the shop have low speed and high speed.
Does it?
Yeah.
I don't think mine does. I've never seen it on there anyway.
We'll keep moving forward here, talk a little bit about the feed accelerator. Got this lever here. Tensions are built for our feed accelerator. Look inside there. If you're running the machines, you know anyway. But you got a high and a low speed. You want high for beans, low for corn. Then on the feed accelerator there, you can see them wear strips in here. No, they're laying right there. We like to replace that or flip them over when they get worn and round it off about halfway also. He's got one here. That one there is a good example. Now, if that one wasn't broken, we could have flipped it over. We got more life out of it. We do got complaints where the feed accelerator is what's causing a lot of crop damage. So John Deere does have more options available. We've got the serrated one like he's got there. We've got another one that's basically wore out about the same as that one. And then we've got a straight, and then we've got a straight sweepback. So we've got some options there, but number one advice that I can give you is make sure that's where your crop damage is coming from. We got to know 100% that that's where our damage is occurring. If you're doing corn, you know, drum in the upper position, deck plates spaced right, not getting your shelling and butt shelling and everything else on the head itself. So just want to make sure that that's where it's actually coming from. But you know, we do have options if that's where the damage is occurring. Also, there is a slow down speed kit for there that'll slow it down another 100 RPMs from what it originally is. So that's another option. Keeping this chain tension properly. This one here is about right. Prolongs the life of the chain, the sprockets, and then if you keep a tension right, you won't have a big old bow in this bar here, because once that starts loosening up, it starts slapping against there and it'll bend it.
Seems like we did.
Got 2.
Yeah, we can talk to you about the sprockets. Yeah, in tough conditions, we can change this to high speed. Or if you're in a situation where you got a lot of material coming in and it's sitting in the center of the head and you just can't get it to feed in, we've got the option to speed that up. In most conditions, you're going to leave it on this sprocket and not touch it.
We recommend starting in low, just because your chain's going to run slower, it's going to last longer, you're not going to wear it out as fast, and you're going to have less crop damage and less thrashing being done in the feeder house area. Some of you guys run, if you're running 45-foot flex scrapers or something, you know, yeah, you're probably going to have to be in high speed. There's also different sprocket combinations we can put on that shaft to change, to slow this down more or speed it up.
Say in extremely dry beans, wouldn't we be better off just to put an accelerator involved?
You can.
I mean,
It would help.
I mean, yeah.
Have you ever plugged one out?
I'll say yes, you can, but don't call me to unplug it.
It's a fine line, because on S series now, when you go to soybean settings, they actually tell you to put it in a low speed.
Right.
On our 70s, the recommendation was high speed.
Like this machine here, they actually say low.
Oh, well, that's what we've been doing, but it was, when we get into dry beans, it seemed like we had to, because we saw a lot of cracking going on. We We thought that's where it was coming from, right?
I'd like to
beans
do
and
some
edible
checking.
beans.
That's gonna be my project for next year. I didn't get it done this year, but I'm wondering when they changed the slide rule or our chart setting that now soybeans they put, say, in the low position, when they manufactured this, if they changed the pulleys. So we got a different speed than we did on the 70s and the early S's. That's what I'm thinking is they changed speed. That's why they changed the recommendation.
And they recommend slow also for seed beans or edible beans.
But in tough green beans, I'd have a hard time if I had a 45-foot draper on the front of this and put it in low speed. I'd be careful.
More questions? Tell us what we did wrong.
They just want it all. There's an old man walking in the field one day and he seen a frog on the ground, so he picked it up and he was going to put it in his pocket. And the frog says, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "I'm putting you in my pocket." The frog says, "Well, give me a kiss on the lips and I'll turn into the most beautiful farm bride you've ever seen." The old man looked at the frog and threw it in his pocket. The frog said, "What are you doing?" He says, "At my age, I'd rather have a talking frog."